So, there you go. Chilling already, huh? Beautiful. So that, to me, I think starts to talk about, or starts to express a little bit of my vision around what it means to be a spiritual director, a spiritual leader, a senior minister, whatever label, whatever hat you want to wear. What it means is creating a space, creating a field. To me, it means looking at how the service is structured, looking at the space and asking questions like, how do I feel? How do I feel when I enter this space? How do I feel when I think about the Center for Spiritual Living Saskatoon? So first of all, I want to start by thanking those of you who have joined us for this broadcast. It's wonderful to have you here. And if you're ever in Saskatoon, we'd love to have you join us. We are an amazingly friendly group. And so I heard a bit of a story the other day. I heard a daughter went up to her father and said, "Daddy, how did human beings come to be created?" And the father said, "Well, went to her mother. And the mother said, what happened was there was Adam and Eve created by God, and they had children, and so we became human beings." Okay. So she went off, and then she bumped into her father a couple of days later and said, "So, Daddy, how did we get to be created?" And he said, "Well, a long time ago, there were monkeys, and so the monkeys eventually evolved, and we ended up becoming human beings, and we evolved from there." So the daughter sort of went away and went to her mother and asked her mother, "Well, I don't understand it because, Daddy talked about monkeys, and us coming from monkeys, and you talk about God and Adam and Eve." And to which the mother said, "Well, your father was talking about his side of the family, and I was talking about mine." Okay, so today I want to talk about knowing equals belief plus evidence. Knowing equals belief plus evidence. So I'm going to give you another side of that formula. Anyone here a bit mathematical? Anyone here not like mathematics at all? This is a very simple formula. And I'm going to explain what these mean. And I'm going to have a little dance with the tree as well. I'm going to explain what these mean. So the other side of the formula is that faith equals belief minus evidence. All right, think about it. So knowing equals belief plus evidence. Faith equals belief minus evidence. All right? So when you think about that, look at belief as being acceptance. Look at belief as being the acceptance of all is, and then look at the evidence as the demonstration and manifestation in your life. You know what I'm talking about, because if you've been doing any journeying with the science of mind teachings, then you've connected with the idea of belief. You've connected with the idea, of not only of belief, because we are, I believe, the most accepting, open, at the top, loving, embracing spiritual organization in the world. We're not a religious organization. I'll explain about that in a minute. We're a spiritual organization. And so when you understand belief and acceptance, then evidence is about manifestation. That's why we teach something called the science of mind. Science is about creating, for experimentation, a demonstration, proving to yourself. So that's what I mean by evidence. So knowing equals belief plus evidence. Now, faith is still a beautiful thing. Faith is belief minus evidence. So in other words, it's saying, I have the belief, I accept, but I don't have the evidence with faith. So in Hebrews 1.1, you would read, "Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen." Now faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. So then you'll go into the science of mind and you will read on page 482, in order to have faith, we must have a conviction that all is well. In order to keep faith, we must allow nothing to enter our thought which will weaken this conviction. So I'm going to come back to those. But before I go there, I want to sort of share a bit of the teaching with you that sort of started to crystallize for me over the recent weeks. Anyone here is familiar with Abraham Hicks? A few of you? If you haven't seen or heard of Abraham Hicks, watch him. I believe Abraham is channeled through Esther Hicks. Abraham, I suppose you look at it as a transpersonal medium experience. But the way to look at Abraham is, I believe that Abraham is one of the best spiritual teachers on the planet at this time. It's science of mind. Every time I hear Abraham Hicks speak, it's science of mind. And one of the things that Abraham Hicks talked about, and I think one of the things that Abraham Hicks has done is actually expanded. Now, Ernest Holmes said many, many years ago that we've got to be open at the top. And what open at the top means is he was saying that if a teaching or a teacher came along and it extended, it enhanced, it empowered, it stretched the science of mind as I wrote it in this book, then we should be open to that. We should be open to the truth that at this point, there's only a certain level of consciousness that is being revealed through me and through the teachers of the age. And as we evolve, as the planet evolves, there is an expansion of consciousness. And it's no coincidence that Abraham, through Esther Hicks, found a vehicle to be expressed. Now, some people may look at that and they may have questions or concerns, they may not understand it. But for me, when I think about what's going on there, I only have to listen to what Abraham Hicks is saying. So one of the things that Abraham Hicks talks about is the emotional grid. And what I love about this is it sits so nicely with the science of mind, but it plugs a gap the science of mind has. If you think about when the science of mind was written, it was around 1938. The first edition was around 1927. The first edition was called The Science of Mind and Spirit. Did you know that? Yeah, The Science of Mind and Spirit. They chopped the spirit off to just give it the science of mind. And that was a shame, because what happened then was it then became a title that conveyed this idea that it was all in the mind. And so as a result, it became an intellectual focus for many. And our organization, as we evolved, as we had to grow, we had to work through that. And it was, whilst it was a shame, it was also perfect. That chopping off the and spirit was also probably in reaction to the spiritualism in the early 1900s, which was not getting a good rap. This is one of the things that happens when you go to ministerial school. You get to learn about all the theological history. So you get to see that there are all sorts of things happening that is not in the mainstream consciousness now. So there's all sorts of things that have happened. And if you think about it on a personal level, this happens to you individually. You have experiences that have an impact and influence you and mold you and shape you. You get to watch world events. You get to experience your own family and your community and what goes on. But one of the challenges that was in the science of mind was there wasn't really much conversation about emotion or feeling. If you've ever studied other religions, like such as Buddhism, Buddhism really denies emotion. It says it's all in the mind. And I don't agree with that, because my evidence is I experience emotions. I experience feelings. That's evidence to me. I have a knowing that I am a feeling being. I have a knowing that I'm a being of joy. I have a knowing that I am a passionate person. I have a knowing I have wondrous freedom and happiness and enthusiasm. How can I then try and distill it into an intellectual exercise? So what Abraham Hicks did, and this is where it really starts to plug the gap, Abraham Hicks said, well, here's the emotional grid. And I want you to understand that when you are feeling something, that what is happening from a feeling point of view is that's contributing to the creative process. So how I liken it is like this. And Abraham Hicks doesn't talk about this bit. I see the creative process as a rocket ship, that there is the fuel and that there is the guidance system. It's the guidance system. The fuel are the feelings. The guidance system is the intention. Now, I can have all the intention in the world, but if I don't have fuel, I'm not going to take off the landing pad, right? I can have all of the fuel in the world, but if I have no intention, if I'm not clear, or if my intention is set off course, if I'm not setting my guidance system at the target, I'm going to take off, but where am I going to end up? I'm probably going to crash, or I'm going to run out of fuel somewhere. Does that ring a bell? That's the creative process. So we need to be able to get both the feelings and the mind together. So Abraham Hicks came along and said, well, there's an emotional grid that's going on. Now, from a mental point of view, we can do intellectual acrobats and reasoning and deducing with our ego and with that part of us that analyzes, and we can bring ourselves to a place that we have an intellectual understanding. One of the other challenges for this organization is we've had the expression, change your thinking, change your life. And that is almost an intellectualization of what's going on. Because if it was just changing your thinking, people would have much more ready manifestation, wouldn't they? Or perhaps we should expand what we mean by thinking. What if it's actually change your belief, change your life? Or more to the point, what if it's use your thinking to change your feelings and change your life? You get what I'm saying there? So now we start to bring in feelings. Now, back in 1930, 1940, psychology, for example, was not even a field of science that had even been born. You've got Jung and Freud that are kind of like starting to talk about dreams and archetypes, but there is not psychology at universities. So that scientific effort to really look at feelings and emotions and the psyche and the subconscious hadn't even begun. So if you were to go to an audience and talk about feelings and emotions 80 years ago, 70 years ago, even 30 years ago, It's really only in recent time that our mass consciousness and awareness has expanded to allow us to understand that there are feelings going on. I came from England, and there's that stiff upper lip, and I'd sort of like just suck it in and get on with it. And what nonsense, what denial, what suppression, what aversion. But at the time, that was where we were. So when Ernest Holmes was saying be open at the top, that's what he was meaning. Allow whatever expanded understanding to appear. And as that mass consciousness, as the vibrational awareness of us as a collective human race starts to become expanded and more apparent, then more and more awareness will come through. I have been born at this time as a soul expressing and incarnating for the purpose of inspiring people to awaken to their spiritual magnificence. And I am here at this right and perfect time. And after me, there will be even more enlightened and awakened individuals continuing and expanding that consciousness. So when Abraham Hicks was talking about the emotional grid, this is what Abraham Hicks is saying. If you imagine at the one end of the grid, there is fear, despair. And then you get into, I'll just read it through here. There are insecurity, jealousy, hatred, rage, revenge, anger, discouragement, blame, worry, doubt, disappointment. So you notice each one of those is an incremental step toward the other end of that grid, where it goes through boredom, pessimism, boredom, contentment, hopefulness, optimism, belief, enthusiasm, happiness, passion, and then joy, knowledge, empowerment, freedom, love, appreciation. So here is what Abraham Hicks teaches about the emotional grid. That if you are in a place of despair, don't try and shoot for joy, because you do not have the vibrational awareness and frequency to maintain it. You resonate? But what I love about this is then Abraham Hicks goes, well, if you're in fear, try and jump to insecurity or unworthiness. Honor that and maintain that. Nail that and stay with it. And then with your unworthiness, then jump to revenge and be there and honor it. Don't deny the feelings. Don't do spiritual bypass. Maintain that frequency. Now, if you think about it, I can remember I was traveling around the world. I was on a bit of a walk around, and I ended up with probably $500 to my name. I was in a basement, a wet basement, lying on a broken sofa, and I had pneumonia. And at that point, I was literally in despair. I was stuck in a foreign country. I had a little bit of money left, and I knew that's what was going to get me back. But I was just really struggling, and I was dying. And I was thinking, how could I end my life? Because I had come through a journey that started at 4 years of age with sexual abuse, continued into a children's home with more sexual abuse, went through a death wish in my sort of 17, 18, 19, 20, and went into the rave scene and got into lots of drugs because I was trying to end my life, but I was trying to escape it in that way. And I had no idea. I had no idea what was going on, but I got to the point where I was so of despair that I was looking into the blackest chasm. And I'll never forget that there was the mother of the friend I was staying with. We happened to be sitting down, and she said just the most innocent thing. I was talking about how my back was hurting and I was recovering from the pneumonia. And I said, oh yeah, but I've got 6 lumbar vertebrae instead of 5. And she said, oh, you're one of the star children. And I still don't know what that means, by the way. But it was what she said. And so what she did was she gave me this little handout and this little photocopied couple of crumpled pieces of paper. It talked about prana. It talked about the kundalini. It talked about chakras. And that, I looked at that and I read it and something clicked in me. Something activated in me. And I was 26 years old. It was 18 years ago. And that began the second spiritual era of my life. That was the beginning of my rebirth. And it took me 16 years. That broken little boy started to activate at that point. And when I was in that place of despair, if you'd have told me that I could have gone to joy, I'd have laughed at you. Like, there's no way I can maintain it. It doesn't matter how intellectually you reason and rationalize with me, you can't maintain that. So what Abraham Hicks is saying, that what we do is we'll do an incremental jump. So if you find yourself in worry, try and shift to doubt or disappointment, or even feeling overwhelmed. And if you find yourself in overwhelmed and then you maintain that, then do your work and then try and shift to frustration or impatience, and then shift to pessimism and boredom. Now, hopefully, sooner rather than later, you'll get into optimism and hopefulness. So that's the emotional grid. But now I want to talk to you about the teaching that's being revealed for me that I call the spiritual spectrum. The spiritual spectrum starts with fear, despair, and it works through with anger. And then you may have doubt. And then I like to get into hope. So once I get to hope, now I'm looking to maintain that. And after hope, then I want to go to faith, faith of God. And then I want to go to belief. And then I want to go to knowing. Okay? If I'm in doubt, I don't want to try and go to knowing. I want to try and go to hope. Now, interestingly, hope is a very interesting thing that, and I wrote about this recently, that hope is a very powerful word for many people. If you go and speak to the average person and you ask them, like, what is the word that comes to mind when you think about the future and what it is you really desire? They would probably come up with a word such as hope. You know, I hope for this. And here's, though, what Ernest Holmes has to say about hope. There on page 49, there's a section called Hope, a Subtle Illusion. And he says, hope is good. It is better than despair, but it is a subtle illusion and is an unconscious compromise. You think about it. So we in Science of Mind recognize that hope is good. It's better than despair. It's better than doubt. It's better than worry. And it's a good starting point. And I'd imagine many of you, when you came into these teachings, you likely encountered hope pretty quickly. So the essence of the teaching today is that if you are currently in worry and despair and doubt, then aim for hope. And understand that that's very powerful. Aim for hope. And one of the most powerful things about hope, and it's very interesting, I've caught wind of a dialogue, a conversation that's going on in the world right now that's saying religion is becoming irrelevant. Yes, and I can understand why it is, but we're not a religion. We're a spiritual organization. The difference between religion and spirituality, religion is about really the celebrating of someone else's journey. The master teacher who got it and worked it out and ascended and all that. Spirituality is about celebrating your own journey. That's why we're a center for spiritual living, because we are a center, a community that encourages each and every individual, every friend, every member, every practitioner to live spiritually. And one of the most powerful things about community and spiritual community, when it really gets it, is that when someone comes in, they walk through the door and there's a field that is a sacred space. We've already begun to transmute because we are metaphysical alchemists. Our intention, our knowing, transmutes, it changes, it lifts. The vibrational frequency of this space is elevated by all of us. I can feel it. You may even be able to feel it if you're watching from your homes. And as a result, my vision for this community is that people only have to hear Center for Spiritual Living Saskatoon and they feel a sense of hope. That is the power that we have. Now, my role is to be in a state of knowing, and I've spent time getting to being able to hold that, and I'm a human, so I'll slip back. If you vote and bring me on as your spiritual director today, you're going to discover over the coming year that I'm a human, and I'll have moments when I slip a little. But my role is to get right the way back there. My role, I have the support system and the mentors and other ministers out there who I connect with and who I go and say, this is happening. I had it last night. I had it last night around the idea of coming out for the next year. And because we're looking at a year contract, so I've got my daughter is in Edmonton, so she's 8 years old. So my years of age, my coming out here to live is not practical. I also have a business out there and I don't want to leave my daughter. But this community's reached out to me, so we're looking for a compromise. So I realized, well, if I'm coming in and I'm flying in, say, 3 weekends a month, then I need a place to stay. But if I'm here like just 7, 8 nights a month, then maybe people can bill at me and I can stay with people. So that's going to be a request I'll have of the community. But in turn, that means that it empowers me to come out. Just like in terms of a request of the community of being able to fly it. It will cost about $1,000 a month to do that. But that if I am the spiritual leader that you're looking for, and you as a community understand what it takes to bring me out, in turn, what I will do is lead you in the creation of a space, in the co-creation of a space. I will lead you in a collaborative discussion. I will lead you in an inspiring night, and I will be the rock for you. I will be the one that knows. Now, you may, at this point, be in doubt and worry, and I will teach you tools. I will inspire you to get to hope. And when you get to hope, I will teach you tools that will get you to that sense of faith. Now, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Or more specifically, In order to have faith, we must have a conviction that all is well. In order to keep faith, we must allow nothing to enter our thought which will weaken this conviction. Now, again, even that line is beautiful, mystical truth, but the challenge with it is that it's like jumping to knowing if you really don't understand what it is. So my role is to interpret it and to make that accessible. And so what I would say to you around this line is, yes, it is wonderful. We must allow nothing to enter our thought which will weaken this conviction. That's wonderful. That's the utopian perfection of knowing. Yes, but we're human beings. And we'll have feelings that will come and get in the way. And so with that, what you can do then is that you can understand that it's not a problem if you have thoughts that weaken your conviction. It's not a problem. That's not going to be the end of your journey. It's not something to beat yourself up about. But one of the beautiful things about community is that you can reach out to a prayer partner, to a friend in community, to a practitioner. You can reach out to me. Even though I'll be living in Edmonton, if I'm here doing this, serving in this way, I will be available on Skype, on phone, by email. And then I'll come out on the Saturday morning. I'll be here to the Monday morning or the Tuesday, and I'll be meeting with you. One of the things I want to do, I got to spend some time with a couple of our members on Friday. And I got to spend some time in meditation yesterday and dinner last night. When I come out, I would love to spend time with each of you as and when you want and sit down and support you in pastoral care. Actually come and connect with you and have a conversation and be your minister. Be someone where you can just get spiritual counseling. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to love you. I'm just going to love you. I'm going to know that you are love. I'm going to know you are the divine. And I am not going to empower you in your story, though. I'll hear your story, and then I'll reflect truth, and I'll lovingly support, and I'll allow spirit to surface through me what needs to be shared with you so that you can be more empowered and more aware, so that you can take deeper ownership. And if you're in hope, I'll inspire you to get to faith. So when he says that we must allow nothing to enter our thought which will weaken this conviction, it's like, yes, we must. That's the intention. But if we feel, then we may need to do a little less than that. We may need to do some spiritual practice. Or we may need to look at things like there's a wonderful practice of what's called spiritual rampage or positive rampaging or relentless pursuit, where you just get into, and I'm kind of doing it now when I get up. I'm not working from notes. I'm on a rampage where you start talking about how amazing and wonderful things are. Get up in the morning and try that and look at the mirror and go, I am amazing. I am oneness. I am the divine. I have an unlimited power at my disposal because that power is expressing through and as me. I am that I am. There is an absolute inevitable cause that is being activated through me, and the effect is absolutely assured. So I want you to understand that in order to share this journey with you, we're going to have to be a little bit creative. So when I was approached by Kathy, she said, would you consider being our spiritual director? My initial reaction was, well, oh, my daughter, I can't move out to Saskatoon. It's not practical. Well, what if? And then I was awake and found myself suddenly, I was awake all night meditating, and at 4 o'clock in the morning, bolt upright, because I went, well, I can fly in. It's not convenient, but I can do it. And then, so then we could have, if I want to start classes again, all right? So we could do a class, and if you wanted to sign up, what we could probably do is have classes, say, on a Tuesday evening on Skype, but we could probably do like a Saturday afternoon or a Saturday all day and do a couple of the classes, and then the next week do Tuesday, and then come back for a Saturday. So you get a mixture. And just so you understand, if you don't know what it means to do distance education, the third year of my ministerial studies, I did through the internet. I got to study with amazing teachers, Amit Goswami, Dr. Tom Sana, people that are out there and have just, they're absolutely the top of their game. And I got to do that through the internet. It's very doable. But I'm proposing what we could do is a nice compromise. But in turn, as a membership, it's really important to understand that there's going to need to be an exchange. We're going to need to understand. And at this point, when we're looking at what's manifested for this community, you're in a situation where the numbers have been low, the donations have been low. The community has not really been feeling in love with itself, but there's been hope. So I'm saying that now that we've got this hope, it's now time to deepen in the practice, to get the community coming together. I can hold that field. I can hold that knowing. And I'm also planning on doing the weekly newsletter, and I'll be writing to you each week, and I will be completely available to you. But more importantly, I want to encourage a community to come together of shared leadership. I talked about something, a few of you may remember, I introduced an idea called the MENA model, which I've relabeled, and I'm going to call that the Ministry of Outrageous Care. Yeah, you like that? You feeling that? So what we're going to do is we're going to create the Ministry of Outrageous Care. And the idea behind that is that that's going to be, if you have an idea, if you want to do basket weaving, then you come to me, I want to have a small group. And these small groups, you know, they go up to 10 people, and then we'll get a leader. And if the purpose aligns, I go, okay, go get a leader in training the host, and then go off and run your group. And then every month we're going to bring you in for something called Ignite. So on the Sunday afternoon, we'll have a monthly training. And so with VHS, so vision, huddling, and skills. So vision, I will do my vision casting because that's what I am. Then we'll huddle, all of the leaders in training will get together and share. So that's when we get to communicate the monthly messages into each of these groups. And then skills will give you some leadership development training. So we're training you how to be a leader. So now you're now giving to community, but you're clearly getting back. The leaders in training, then they get to go out and then you get to be involved. And only 20% of people typically want to be a leader. So the other 80% of people that want to follow, they get to see these different groups that are going on. And they get to go, and we get to say to them, walk through the door, have you heard about the Ministry of Outrageous Care? Here are the small groups we have right now. We've got 4 or 5 of them right now, and then it will grow and it will grow. And what that will mean is as new people come into the community, they'll have a place to land. And immediately we'll be having this conversation that helps them to get to hope. And then internally within the community, we'll be moving you from hope to faith, to belief, to knowing. Okay, is that making sense? And just when you're thinking about the money, we were talking about, and this is an important conversation really for the membership in terms of the board. Because if you think about the idea of paying a spiritual director, one of the challenges that we've got to fly me out, so that costs $1,000. And then if you say, if I worked 80 hours a month and I was at minimum wage, that's like $800 or $1,000. That's a couple of $1,000. Just so you know, one of the things I'm going to be teaching you about is prosperity. One of the things that happens in many spiritual communities is the confusion between the effect, the money, as cause. Okay, I'm going to teach you about the idea. For example, I get to give $1,600 this month as my tithe to my spiritual home. I'm probably going to pay more than what I'm actually paid each month as my tithe because I have other things going on. But I'm going to do this, you know why? Because I know when I give to my spiritual home, I receive. But I want you to understand this. And when we go into the offering, I'm going to do a little spiritual practice with you because I want you to understand that if you cannot connect with the feeling of hope or with joy when you're giving, don't give. Don't give out of a sense of obligation. And what you'll find is that when you start to connect with the joy of giving, when you start to understand that you are God, giving God to God. I am God, giving God to God. And one of the things I've realized, I currently tithe 10%, but I'm actually realizing that what I need to start doing is tithing 20 or 30% because I want to tithe based on the income I anticipate in my life. I'm not going to get that with $5 a month. Now, I only have $5 a month right now, but then there's a community, which means I can come in and I can be inspired to shift into hope. And when I've got these old thought patterns and grooves and beliefs that have limited me around money, the only thing I would say is that Ernest Holmes says, when we retard our giving, growth will stagnate. In other words, when we hold back on our giving, our growth stagnates. This community, your numbers, your growth has stagnated. So the only conclusion I've got is there's been a retardation of giving. Okay, that may feel uncomfortable, that may feel scary, and I'm here to tell you that's good. And my job is also, by the way, to inspire discomfort in you, but then to support and love you and to transcend that and to transcend your experience. I'm here to tell you, I'm the guy that came from dying of pneumonia in a basement broken sofa to being able to tithe like that and having a business and being invited and now being a minister. That's these teachings. Okay, I'm a walking embodiment of that. So we're going to be going into the giving, but just before we do, I just want you to know that I know that there is something amazing. If you've got hope right now, wonderful. Maybe you're connecting to faith. Maybe you've got some faith because you haven't seen evidence yet. That's wonderful. Let's work with that belief. Maybe you're transcending into that belief and you've got a real deep sense of acceptance. And maybe you are already at knowing. Wonderful. Doesn't matter where you are on that spiritual spectrum. It is perfect. And the joy of spiritual community is that it is for spiritual community to embrace and nurture and support and love you. Not without judgment. Like there's no judgment. There may be some discernment. One of the things I got accused last night of being a very literal person. That's the practitioner in me. You'll say something and I will catch your words immediately. I will catch those words that are revealing the subconscious beliefs of lack and limitation. That's my job. And I will train the spiritual leadership here to be in that space. The board members, I will be working and be doing deep pastoral care with them. And as this community grows, I have a vision of creating shared leadership. If you've got interest in doing something, I will support you, we will train you, and we will know and pray with you. Okay? So I love and I bless you.
Thank you.